Hi everyone, thanks for joining me once again. This is Peter, it's Saturday morning, it's time for some more stories. Before we get into the stories this morning, I just want to read out, I thought it was quite a humorous comment actually, but I think the guy was being deadly serious. It's from a guy called Stephen Brelsin, I think it is, Breslin, or Brelsin. He's put, he wrote to me and he said, well, he's left a comment on the channel. He said, this is about last week's story. So he said, sound is mediocre or worse, and that pink wall background rather pathetic. How much longer until you bring your program back to former UK quality? Well, you know, at the end of the day, I can't really do a lot about it other than go out and buy some magnolia paint and paint the hotel room, but I don't think they'd be very happy if I did that. So what I'd suggest, if you don't like looking at pink walls, maybe just don't watch the video, just listen to it when you're walking your dog or something like that. To everybody else, I hope you're going to enjoy these two stories. The reason there's only two today is because the first one is rather long. It's quite a long story. It's a good story, and I've just tagged on a very short one to the end. So as always, I won't waste any more time. I'll get straight into it, and let's see what you think of this one.
สวัสดีค่ะ
My story begins, I guess, about 25 years ago. I married an Indonesian girl I had met and worked with, and we eventually settled in Australia and had two lovely children. Before the second child had started school, I noticed my wife had been unfaithful. It was more than just one man. Also, she had no interest in joining me for aerobics. For the sake of the children, I pretended not to know about her antics, and I battled on without any aerobics until my children were adults. I decided now is the time. I hired a lawyer and finally felt as though morally I could have some fun too, since a divorce was not far away. I decided to look online, so many dating sites and so many delicacies in Southeast Asia. I tried the Philippines first. Heck, it was a minefield. Instinctively, I knew that they were out to skin me alive. Despite their allure, I knew the score. At almost 60, the only thing I have that would attract a 20-something lady is my money. Although I should say, I do obviously look fit and healthy and well maintained for my years. It was the end of 2019 and I was getting restless for travel too. I planned and booked an epic trip through Southeast Asia. Yes, I have a taste for meeting women from these countries. I'm well aware of my weaknesses too, hence my dating caution. I had already burnt through about 200 Filipino women online chatting. Not one of them was on the level, although I never did try a popular Christian website. I had organised my holiday by now, and it was already January 2020, and wham, COVID came along. Suddenly travel restrictions began to appear everywhere. I scrambled to rescue my travel. I cancelled everything except the first leg of my journey, which would take me to Bangkok. The next leg into China was already a no-go. I had heard that Bangkok was the number 2 city in the world for fans of that wonderful game that you, Peter, call Connect 4. In fact, I had read that the number 1 city was Pattaya, only 2 hours from Bangkok. I had never been to Thailand, and originally Bangkok was to be just a 2-night stopover with a visit to soicowboy, whatever that was. So my altered plans had me in Thailand for about 12 nights. What's a man to do? I hit the Thai dating websites again. At first I was a little disappointed, but I soon decided that the Thai women, whilst cunning, are nothing like the Filipino women. Just my observation from among almost 100 ladies, I found a true diamond in the rough. Let's call her Nan. I'm not the most street smart guy, but when she said she worked as a masseur, my alarm bells rang until it was clear that she worked in arguably the most expensive hotel spa in all of Bangkok. A single man would never go to one of these if he was looking for some aerobics. She had a pretty sad but genuine story. She had been forced by her boyfriend to partake in aerobics when she was a young girl, and before she was 18, she'd had 2 children and her boyfriend then left her. She was born in Isan and, according to her, is a mixture of Lao and Khmer background. Very typical for Isan people, and indeed she certainly does not look at all like central Thailand. Her Thai life had been particularly tough as a single mum. She tried everything to provide for them. She was estranged from her mother. She felt deserted by her because she went off to Norway with a man. Her father had departed the scene some time before that. Her mother convinced her to go to Bangkok and to try her luck. She applied to work in various massage shops and was accepted into one. The owner, a man, gave her work, a bed above the shop, and he sponsored her to complete her schooling, which indeed she completed university. I never probed Nan about what the sponsorship entailed. I did ask, but then I changed the subject as the answer is of course obvious. Nan did say that she was thankful for him for paying her schooling fees. With university completed, Nan decided wisely to move on. By now, she had had a lot of experience doing real massage with her boss's references. She applied at various hotels. How she was accepted at this very posh hotel, I don't know, but work there she did. I feel she was initially hired to clean and prepare the rooms at 10 a.m. each morning, with a promise of work in the spa as the need arose. Nan was genuinely looking for love. Wisely, she knew that a Westerner like myself was a perfect match, as only somebody like myself would consider a second-hand Isan country girl. I was upfront about not yet being divorced, but she trusted me and the process was underway anyway. For some reason, we really clicked. I was a perfect gentleman and she was a perfect lady in our chatting, although we did flirt a little, but always in a way such that I could apologise for. I said I was arriving in Bangkok the day after Valentine's Day in 2020. Nan and I were very excited. I stuffed a large koala toy in my bag and off I went to the airport that day. Nan had apologised for not looking Thai and for not having large breasts. I had reminded her that having been married to a Southeast Asian lady, I was aware of the situation and it did not matter. I prefer slim girls, not fat girls. During our flirting, I had said it was many years since I had an aerobic session. Just quietly, I had visited a doctor and told him of my many hopes in Thailand. He said that I did not qualify for a prescription for the blue tablets. My problem was purely in my head. So full of anxiety, I arrived just before midnight on Valentine's Day, and by the time I cleared customs, it was the next day already, and there was Nan greeting me with a big hug. I am very attuned to Southeast Asian culture, so I did not attempt to kiss. I was very impressed with how Nan looked. Yes, she had been using a touch-up app on her phone to remove her scars, but wow, she looked great. We'd agreed that she'd meet me and escort me to my hotel. We'd never discussed more than that. In the taxi, she reminded me that I had said I'd never had a genuine Thai massage, so she began to massage my thigh. You can imagine my anxiety levels were sky high. I was so nervous. I was absolutely positive that this was an opening gambit by her, but then I was filled with so much self-doubt too, such as what if I am wrong? In hindsight, it was obvious she had planned that move and executed it very well. I should have been going, yeah, I'm in, and I should not have been in a nervous state. We arrived at the hotel just a stone's throw away from Soicowboy. By now, I was well versed from online study and I was not at all surprised when the check-in staff did not ask for Nan's ID. She absolutely did not look like a working lady that I had only just met in one of the nearby bars. I asked Nan if she wanted to see my room and she had a surprised look on her face. In hindsight, I suspect she was momentarily disappointed in that she thought I was not keen to partake of some aerobics or that I was timid. What she didn't realise, and what I won't bother explaining here, is that she was my first real girlfriend. I'd never been in this situation before. As soon as the room door was closed, I could not hold back. After much kissing in the doorway, she pushed me away and silently went about the room. First switching on the aircon and adjusting the temperature, a check of the bed comfort, she pulled the TV remote out of a drawer, and then an examination of the bathroom. Everything seemed in order. Yes, it is a major red flag when a so-called good girl knows her way around a hotel room, but she had worked in a very posh hotel, and in our conversations, she knew a lot about cleaning routines, staff, rostering and such. In fact, I had always suspected that she had worked as a room cleaner for a couple of hours many days prior to her spa shift. Nan had a shower and then made it very clear she wanted me to shower too. While I was showering, I noticed that Nan had managed to find a reflected view through a narrow slit into the bathroom. She was spying on me. At this stage, I thought I'm going to give her a show. I was already somewhat excited to see her, and I'm sure that she would have noticed too. Smelling decent, I returned to find Nan under the covers, curtains drawn and lights off. What followed was simply incredible. I had never actually had what people call the girlfriend experience, ever in my life. My wife had a certain routine which focused on her needs only, and it never really included intimacy. It was always very clinical. The handful of times each year when we had connected for aerobics, and of course there had been nothing for about 15 years. It soon became apparent that Nan had been honest about her lack of experience too. She did not know the English words for the various strategies we use while playing Connect 4, and it seemed that she had never experienced some of those strategies. I also noticed that she was rather sweet downstairs. She explained that she had not expected me to do what I did, and indeed it had never happened for more than a fleeting second during a game. She later apologized to me as she had noticed me gagging and coughing, but she explained that she had never had so much continuous bliss ever. It was during one of my coughs that she excused herself and returned much improved. She sat down on the bed, grabbed my head, and let it be known that the show must go on. Thank the heavens this was no hunt for Red October, but at times I had to fight against her hands as I surfaced for a breather. For my part, I got so carried away with Nan's enjoyment that I forgot my own. I learnt that night that at my age, sustaining what I needed to sustain for well over an hour until it was almost 3 a.m. in the morning local time or 7 a.m. in Australia was way too much to expect. I apologised and we slept. Then almost immediately it seemed my alarm went off. It was 7 a.m. Thai time. Silly me, I had forgotten my alarm was still on. I opened my eyes and there was Nan sitting up in bed with a huge smile on her face looking at me. She immediately took charge. That morning I watched a Thai rodeo in my room. There was a particular lady who was really full of energy and clearly having the time of her life. Every so often Nan would lean down with her huge smile and plant a gentle kiss on my lips. Without warning, she flipped over, a rocket blasted off for Saturn that morning, and the explosion surely woke the neighbours. Nan was so thrilled at my enjoyment. It was as though she blamed herself for my failure the previous night. We lay together in the aftermath, cuddling in no hurry. This was also something I had never done in my life. I had achieved my life's dream. I had a real girlfriend. What followed over the next 10 or so days was a whirlwind romance, but also one tinged with regret and sadness. Regret that in adjusting my travel plans I had not allowed for a longer trip, and sadness as I knew that each day was one left enjoying Nan's paradise. I had, after almost 60 years, finally found my Garden of Eden. We were constantly together and constantly exploring new vistas each of us had missed in our younger years. I did silly things like buying her candy and chasing her around shopping malls and taking lots of silly photos together, and you would have thought that we were teenagers. There was a time we wandered over to Nanaplaza in Bangkok. Neither of us had seen a go-go bar. Nan kept trying to push me inside, then I realised she wants to look at the woman's boobs because Nan is rather flat herself. And that explains why she constantly plays with my chest. She wants to know what it's like to be endowed. And when I organised a really expensive dinner in a nice restaurant, I asked if she had a nice dress and shoes. No problem, was the reply. It was the same dress, her only dress, she wore to meet me at the airport, and a pair of white running shoes. Back in the hotel room, we were teenagers too. It was her birthday during our time together. She'd hit the big 30. Like naughty children, we moved to a couple of new hotels, with me whispering to the staff each time that it was her birthday. We would wait patiently in our room for the chocolate cake surprise or whatever to arrive. And what do naughty youths do when alone in a room waiting for their birthday surprise? Here I was at almost 60 enjoying what my own children were right then enjoying for themselves. It is no wonder that they had pushed me to go to Thailand with lots of nudges and winks. They felt sorry for me and indeed were rather annoyed with my wife, and they had even confided that they knew that what she was doing, and they had tried to hide it from me so I wouldn't be hurt. It seems that everybody in the family knew about the situation, but we all carried on to live one big charade for over 20 years of marriage. Never in my life had I had a genuine girlfriend, and indeed that story will likely never be told, for this story is about Nan and the profound sadness and despair which is about to follow. Oh, I remember the trick she played on me in Central Festival on Beach Road in Pattaya. That food court on the right and a little downstairs near the Beach Road entrance. She went straight to the somtam kiosk, as she does. This time I decided that I'd have the same as her. She asked if I was sure. I informed her to bring it on. I'm brave. As I was eating, I was aware of the look from the two girls at the kiosk. They seemed quite concerned and amused at my antics as I thumped the table while I struggled with the hottest chili I'd ever had in my life. Or the time when I wanted to play Connect 4 on the sofa in our room, but she insisted we use the bed because she was worried that we'd make a mess and the cleaner would do us in, and she knows that in a hotel such as the fine is really expensive. So a tug of war ensured on the floor between the bed and the sofa, and we spilt our drinks and snacks and made a mess anyway. I fondly recall a day when we didn't quite make it out of our room for breakfast or lunch or dinner. In that respect, Nam was insatiable, just laying together in each other's arms. Money cannot buy that genuine girlfriend experience. Giving her pleasure and her genuine appreciation was a new experience for me and a memory I'll treasure forever. Our time came to an end. Needless to say, at the airport the tears flowed. I was a mess. COVID was upon us and I knew that meeting again would be delayed a few months. Just a few, so I thought. Nan, not expecting the romance to blossom, had signed a contract to work as a head masseur in the new spa in the Westin Hotel in Dhaka in Bangladesh. She had been headhunted by a customer at her spa. I strongly advised Nan against this as I suspected it was a scam. She assured me that it was okay and that COVID would blow over and she would have a dream job. Her English language contract seemed legitimate enough to my eyes. As the months dragged on, it was clear that COVID was here to stay. That job in Dhaka was cancelled, but worse was to befall me. In hindsight, I think the story is too long. Maybe you can chop this bit, Peter. Back in Australia, I became really sick after about 10 days, deliriously sick. My wife was away with her boyfriend. My kids were staying over at their partners' houses. I was alone and literally too sick to prepare food for myself. I would crawl from a mattress on the floor to the bathroom several feet away, as necessary. I had the presence of mind to get every drink bottle in the house and to fill them with water and put them round my bed. My shoulders in particular ached so much. The pain was like they were on fire. Even as I lay, it felt that my muscles were being eaten alive, from my neck to my upper arms. After 48 to 78 hours of this, the pain suddenly lessened somewhat. I was still delirious but able to stand. The local hospital was just a kilometre away. I was aware of COVID. I can't call a taxi. Now, thinking clearly, I decided to walk to the hospital. An ambulance never crossed my mind. 45 minutes later, after collapsing and crawling much of the way, I arrived at emergency. I just lay in the doorway. The nurses ran out and went through a COVID screening routine and got me into a wheelchair. The main concern was that I was coughing. No was always my answer. Due to a lack of testing infrastructure and the lack of the main symptom, I was never tested for COVID that day. I was sent home and told to take paracetamol. The pain and high fever lasted several days more. I went to my GP informing the front office that the hospital had determined that I did not have COVID. The doctor dismissed my shoulder concerns, but he did arrange testing for a variety of viruses. Back home, I looked in the mirror for the first time in a while. I had so much loose skin around my upper arms and shoulder area. I looked emaciated. My weight had dropped in just a few days from 73 to 67 kilograms. This was not right. So back to the doctor the next day. It transpired that I had contracted a virus to which most people are immune after schoolyard exposure. As an adult, it had hit me very hard. Additionally, I had a complication from the virus I had contracted, Personage-Turner syndrome. I also noticed something. I could no longer shave myself and do other very specific movements, such as use a fork normally in my left hand. But I could do many other things. In fact, superficially, I did not appear handicapped. I worked as a driver. I noticed I could not use the steering wheel with my left arm, nor use the turn indicators which are on the left side of my vehicle. For the next 6 months, I hid the problem in a very clever way. Over about 10 months, I regained almost full use of both arms. In fact, I'm 98% recovered today. During the recovery time and it being COVID, I was rather forlorn. Nan was also depressed. Nan had returned to her country village in Isan. Not once had she asked me for any money, but finally the request came. I was saving every penny for my dismissal. I declined to help Nan. Later, I did send her part of what she requested, about 25,000 baht. Nan had requested a lot more to help build her farm and stock it with pigs, corn, dig out the pond to make a small lake for fish, freezers and so on. Along the way, we seemed to become more dejected, the chats less frequent, and then months went by with silence. We both simply gave up. As 2022 began, it became clear that Australians would soon be able to travel. I dutifully applied for leave at work, but on each occasion my application was rejected. COVID had meant that my industry, a critical infrastructure industry, was short of workers like me. Finally, in 2022, I received permission for that November. It was already June, but I informed Nan that I was coming. I had time to reassess our relationship. In the cold, hard light of day, it was clear that it was nothing more than me living a boyhood dream, an infatuation. My approach now with Nan was more businesslike. We both want some fun. We'll go on afterwards with our own lives. Feeling confident at work, I began sponsoring Nan at 12,000 baht per month. I was at full stretch with that amount because I had a disastrous run with my retirement investments, and I was frantically working with my accountant to recover my dream plan of retiring in 2022, which incidentally won't happen. In September, Nan complained of terrible headaches and being unwell. In October, silence. After a couple of weeks, a message she was in hospital. Tests were being conducted. The headaches were worse than a migraine. Silence again. Then an apology. She had been in an induced coma. Now fluid had been extracted from her spine in order to ascertain the brain problem. Then news that she had acquired a rare fungal infection in the brain. She had been rushed to a private hospital. She could no longer walk. Nan never asked for money. She simply stated the medical invoices so far had amounted to 84,000 baht and were steadily climbing. There was a lot more silence due to her brain not functioning as it should, as well as sedation too. I had determined that I had become besotted with Nan after a fling of less than 2 weeks. She cannot speak English and I have no Thai. We used an app to translate all the time. The only thing we had in common was a desperate need at the time to fulfill a fantasy of a missed era of puppy love, of that genuine first relationship as a youngster. Looking back over many aspects of the days we were together, it is now apparent to me that she was playing the long game. Several times she spoke of her dream of a life in Australia, a starstruck dream, even if ever there was, in my opinion, and yes, her hope for boob jobs so that she could become a complete woman for me. When we travelled together, I had tried to introduce her to non-Isan food. She would always go back to somtam. She was happy eating some variation of that for every meal, with that mango dessert and sometimes watermelon too. Other food I got her to try she would just pick at. She dreamed about a life in Australia. I know that life would have been miserable for her. She promised to be a good wife and to cook every day. I do like spicy food, but I can only take so much somtam. And here is Nan now literally incapacitated and at death's door with a fungus eating away at her brain. Will she die? I think so. That is a prognosis as far as my research has concluded, especially given limited financial means and thus no access to the best hospital in Bangkok. Her condition is not improving and arguably worsening in between periods of respite when she thinks that the latest spinal tap improved her condition for a few hours. Should I throw good money at her to try to prolong her life? That 84,000 baht down payment with no clear total is a worry. She will need lifelong disability care if she survives. As she can no longer walk, then her farm and the pigs, corn and fish are a financial concern too. I am totally torn. Do I help her but potentially cripple my own retirement plans? I should help her, but where is the love? Is it right that I should go all in without love? I care about her for sure, but that in itself is not full love. I made the decision to inform her that I do not have permission from my accountant to give her more money, but I will try to reassess the situation in a few weeks. Call me cold-hearted, call me mercenary, call me a killer for not trying everything to save her life. This is tearing me apart. Obviously the guy's, yeah, that's something that's quite hard to swallow, isn't it? But he's right. Where do you go with it? You know, I mean, obviously she doesn't have any kind of insurance. She's got a life-threatening condition, and you know, it's going to take a hell of a lot of money, a hell of a lot of caring. And is it down to him to take over that for the rest of her life? Okay, so with that quite sad story, let's move on to the second one. This one, as I say, is very, very short. I've just pinned it onto the end to fulfill the upload today. Okay, I met my wife in Thailand in 2007. Married in 2008. The marriage was good, but we did have problems from time to time and separated a couple of times. We had separated and I came back to the States. I was sure the marriage was over and decided to travel back to the Philippines. I met a girl at a chat site and she was drop dead gorgeous. We talked for a few months and I agreed to come, and she met me at the airport in Manila. I didn't recognize her as the picture I had seen of her was 10 years old and she had changed a lot. I decided to give her a chance. She had told me she had 2 sons and never married. The oldest son was a product of rape and the second from a relationship she had ended a few months prior. She said she worked in the market to support her 2 boys and her mother who lived with her. Turns out she lived with her mother, had 4 sons, was married, and her mother worked to support them along with her worthless husbands. Seems her line of employment was scamming foreigners into sending her money. She had arranged to rent a house in Angeles City for us and her mother and 2 sons to live in. Meanwhile, scamming me for any money she could get from me. The relationship sucked from the start, and after a couple of months I decided to end it. Her mother seemed very nice and had taken good care of me. Seems her husband didn't like her oldest son since he was not his father and abused the boy, who was 16 by then. The grandmother had taken him to raise at birth. I developed a close relationship with him and his younger half-brother, who was 9. When their mother left to go back and with her husband, I asked the grandmother to stay with the 2 boys with me, and they did. The grandmother told me the truth about her daughter. 2 weeks after I arrived in the Philippines, COVID had hit and we were all on lockdown. The grandmother asked me to buy a puppy and I did. A month later I decided to buy a female for the male puppy. Eventually I started a relationship with the grandmother and all was good, it seemed. After 7 months I returned to the States. I had given the grandmother access to my email site and her jealousy came out and she started accusing me of running around on her, which I had not. One day she accused me of putting naked pictures of my wife online. I remembered seeing such a message in my spam folder. I never opened spam messages because of viruses. I explained to her what the message was, but told her she was causing me too much stress and ended the relationship. However, I loved my dogs, so agreed to send her money to support my puppies. We remained friends and now have 6 babies from the first 2. When her daughter had went back to her husband, she had told him she had been working for me as a house girl, but her youngest son had told him we were sleeping together. He beat her severely, but she stayed with him. He had abused the older boy many times and had once poured hot grease on his hands, scarring it, so they did not like each other. When I met the husband, I told him if he ever touched the boy again, I would kill him. He knows I mean it, so stays away from the boy. Meanwhile, back in the States, I had a home that also had my wife's name on the title, so I wanted to sell the house to her. To make the story shorter, I realised she is the woman of my dreams and we worked out our problems, so I'm looking forward to getting back to Thailand and my wife as quickly as I can. I want to believe I am getting wiser as I get older, but truth be known, it is probably my wife who is the wise one. So there you go, it's a bit of a minefield out there, isn't it? Obviously he's broken up with his Thai wife, he's tried to find love in the Philippines, and he's gone back to his Thai wife again. Okay guys, just the 2 stories this week. So the current situation is I'm in Pattaya for about another 10 days or so, so you'll have to put up with the pink walls for 1 more week. To the guy who wrote in, he didn't like it. Hopefully the sound's a little bit better. I've changed the mic this time. Hopefully the sound is a lot clearer than last last week. It's a little bit difficult when you're working out of a hotel room, and it is a small budget hotel, so I'm doing the best I can. All right, yeah, I'm here for another 10 days. What have I been doing while I've been down here? I've managed to get my long-term visa for 15 months. I've managed to open a bank account. I haven't managed to stop their messages disturbing the upload. I've also got 2 driving licenses. I've got my Thai car driving license, my car motorcycle license, and everything's good to go now. So when I finally come out here after the new year, as far as I know, my house sale is still going through, so I should be coming out here after the new year full-time permanent. I'm very much looking forward to it. And anyway, that's enough about me. So I'll be back next Saturday with some more stories. But saying that, guys, I am getting desperately short of stories. If you're sitting on a story, or you're thinking about a story, or you're thinking I might send one in, please do it now, because I am desperately short. And if you send your story in now, it's pretty certain that I'll read it out fairly quickly, okay? But for this week, once again, guys, thanks for listening to me, and I'll catch up with you all real soon.